Welcome to the Life in High Gear podcast. I'm Kristin, your coach, your host. This is episode 37, and today we're going to talk about being rich. Before we get into the episode, I would like you to find your next exhale. Take a big exhale out. And in doing so, you're letting go of things that are old, anything that happened today, anything that may or may not happen in the future. And as you let that breath go, let the next breath happen. Soften through your jaw, soften the face. And if you're sitting, lift the crown of your head so it's a little bit erect and allow the energy to flow through your body. What we're talking about in this episode, I think is really, really important and can absolutely change your life. So buckle up. As we get started, this is a great time to follow what we do on Instagram at mylifeinhighgear. So the Instagram handle is at mylifeinhighgear. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, please give us a 5-star rating. It helps other people get this information. And you can also, as long as you're there, write a review. The other thing that you might do is go on to patreon.com/lifeinhighgear. We've recently had more people sign on. I'm so grateful for that, to sign on to support the podcast on a monthly basis. So it's a great thing you can do. And thank you for doing that. Let's talk about being rich, okay? At the time of this recording, it's a Thursday evening, and I've had quite a few coaching sessions this week with private clients. I also give talks to companies, we'll call them, companies, institutions, about the curriculum that I teach. As you might already know, if you've listened to this podcast before, I teach about boundaries to keep people safe. I also teach about taking responsibility for your life. And I teach about how to make incremental changes over time, which ends up making vast, huge changes in the future. Most people come to me in crisis and want to make a big change. And the coaching work that I do involves lots of question asking, but I digress. What I want to talk about is something that I've noticed about my clients. I can't speak for other coaches. I can't speak for other philosophies. I did spend some time this week at my local bookstore, which is charming, and looked at the self-improvement section and the coaching section and books about spirituality. And I noticed one thing, and it actually maybe should be a relief. I noticed that none of the books, and I mean none of the books, talked about what I'm about to tell you about today. I don't know why. That's not my business. What I do know is that I'm blessed to coach some of the most highly successful people I've ever heard of. And they have 3 things in common. And most people would say these people are rich. But the people who I work with, including the people who I coach at institutions or companies, they are also rich in that everyone has the same kind of mentality, and everyone I've worked with embodies these same 3 things. So I'm going to open them up to you. And if you're listening to this and stumbled across this podcast and this content, it's very likely that you have these qualities as well. And here's what. If you don't have these qualities already, I'm going to let you in on something. You can embody these qualities. You can get these qualities. You can work with me to have you coach you about these qualities, but you can get these. So let's get into what they are, okay? Everyone who's highly successful, and what does successful mean to you? Think about that for a moment. Does that mean financially successful? Because I've coached some people who have great financial means who are absolutely miserable. I've also coached people who have more modest means who are so happy because they have just enough financial serenity and just enough income to spend on the small things that give them great pleasure. I hope that made sense to you when I just said that. You might have heard the phrase more money, more problems, and that is absolutely true. I see that all the time. Any given individual, including you, only needs a certain amount of money. After that, it's a problem, and less than that, it can present problems. So, what is rich for you? It's not, in all likelihood, endless financial means. What it is a sense of serenity in your personal life and in your professional life, in your family life. There's peace, and that can start and end with you. If you don't have peace right now, you can get it. That's really what I give in my coaching work is peace. I help people to problem solve and heal so that they have peace. That's it. That's all I do. But there are 3 things, as I said, that everyone has who I work with. And if they don't have them in the beginning, they have them after they work with me. Let's get into what they are. The first thing that everyone has who works with me is an ownership versus a victim mentality. If you're watching this on YouTube, I smiled big as I said that, because many people come to me with a victim mentality and they shrug it off. They let go of it. Many people come to me with an ownership mentality and deepen it, because it's that ownership mentality, that ability to take responsibility for yourself completely, unapologetically, being totally unbothered by what anyone thinks about you. Taking ownership is almost everything. It's 1/3 of the formula that my clients have that brings them success, that makes them rich. Taking ownership. I have worked with people in the past here and there who don't take ownership. You know people who don't take ownership. You have them in your life. The victim mentality, that everything is happening to you rather than happening for you. Ownership mentality means that things are happening for you. Once again, I did not see anything in the self-improvement section of my bookstore that really talks about this in quite this way. And I want you to really think about what I'm saying. Use your mind to consider what you can own. Next, I'm going to drop that for a moment because I want to get through all of these 3 things. And the next one is, so the first one, let me just review. The first one is having the ownership mentality versus the victim mentality, that things are happening to you. Ownership mentality is things are happening for you. You take responsibility for everything about you, and you take responsibility for your part in things. If this is less than familiar to you, if you know you need to work on this, bop right on back to episode 36, which is titled, If I'm Not the Problem, There Is No Solution. It's a hard episode to hear. It's a hard concept. But once you work with that concept and let it take a hold of you, you're great. You're golden. So first one is ownership versus a victim mentality. Second is the difference between willpower. My clients don't have this willpower, nitty gritty, like sink your teeth into everything, I'm just going to do this attitude. My clients actually don't get rich or are wealthy or are serene or are personally and professionally successful with willpower alone. They're not, because that's not what works. I'll tell you what does. And this is what I see day in and day out. Willingness. The willingness to be open to things. The willingness to be accountable. The willingness to be open to new ideas. Willing to be open to possibility, not willpower. Willpower is the kind of tenacity it takes to lose 5 pounds. Willpower is the kind of tenacity it takes to get through an Ironman. But the most successful athletes, the most successful people, no matter what success means to you, don't just have willpower, they have the willingness. Willpower will get you through. That's why I said losing 5 pounds. Willpower will get you just this far, just a little bit of the way. And then most people digress and go back home to their normal state of being, whatever that is. People who are willing are open to new possibilities and will get to a new level in their spiritual, emotional, mental, professional, athletic, physical life. That's what happens. Willingness is so different from willpower. Willpower is that thing that you'll struggle with and you'll struggle to overcome it. Willingness, when willingness is dominant, success happens. So, the first quality is the ability to take ownership. The second quality is being willing. The third quality is risk taking. The third quality that all of my clients have that I've noticed have the ability to risk and are willing and take ownership for being risky. They are willing to risk professional and personal relationships to be able to have serenity. I'll give you an example. A lot of the work I do, and we're already in episode 37, so if you've listened to almost any of the episodes, you know that one of the biggest things that I teach is about boundaries. How a boundary happens. How do you know you need to make a boundary? How do you make a boundary? What's the consequence? How do you hold to a boundary? I've taught all of that in pieces over past episodes. If you work with me, you privately or in a group, you will be taught boundaries and you will have boundaries that you execute, and it changes your life. This third aspect that all of my clients have in common is a willingness to be risky. They take ownership, they're willing, and they will take risks. And they will take risks by making a boundary. That's why I brought up boundaries. They will take a personal or professional relationship of some sort and execute boundaries there. They will see their own needs. My clients see that their needs are important and that they are deserving. The most highly successful people I know are willing to risk something that might be trivial in order to have great reward. People who are highly successful are open to being risky because the big reward on the other side is huge. And often that's what I'm giving, which is serenity. What I'm offering is peace and serenity. So taking risks often involves creating boundaries, and all of my clients are open to that. They create boundaries. They create boundaries. If I'm being open with you listeners and viewers, my clients create boundaries all the time. They create boundaries day in and day out, and they go through this long process that for some boundaries is arduous, but it's worthwhile because, again, risk brings huge reward, huge, massive reward, life-changing reward. So the most successful people are willing to risk. And often that involves boundary making. Part of boundary making is being clear on what it is that you need and deserve. So I've been thinking about this a lot, and I even hesitated bringing this to you because I wasn't sure whether you wanted to know even about what the most highly successful people do. And also, you can just walk into any bookstore or open up Google and bring up a plethora of books that are going to tell you about what highly successful people do. But what I noticed is that these topics weren't covered in quite this way. And I do know that my experience with private clients and people and groups who are working with me at institutions or companies all have this in common. And I've never seen it talked about in quite this way. And for me, I would appreciate the directness that I'm offering you here in this podcast. So the 3 things that the most highly successful people do to make them rich, spiritually rich, personally, professionally rich in life. Think about something that's rich that you would taste. It might be butter, it might be truffles, it might be something delicious and unctuous. That's rich. And use that with your other senses, with the sense of smell. What smells rich? And richness is often, there's a depth to it. And I want that for you. I want that richness and that depth and that unctuous, satisfying deliciousness that there is to life, because you can have that. I know that. And I work with people who have that, but they work hard on that. And the 3 things that they work hard on are taking ownership, taking responsibility for their lives. They do not have time for this victim mentality stuff. Never. And if they do, they course correct, often with me. And I'm so happy to be there for that. The second thing is that willingness. So it's not willpower, it's that willingness to do what it takes and to be open to different possibilities, to be open to different theories and different ways, different avenues, different pathways to success. Not willpower, I have to do this, I have to get there. That is a failure mentality. Third, the people who are the most successful are risky. They're able to risk because they know what their boundaries are. They make boundaries and they're then willing to roll the dice. This is my boundary. Here are 2 dice. I'm going to roll the dice and these are my boundaries, and whatever happens, happens. So whatever happens with family, whatever happens personally, professionally, even if they roll the dice and something fails, I have seen time and time again, it never fails. On the other side is great reward. I've seen people roll the dice, able to risk, roll the dice, create a boundary. No, I will not work that much. No, I will not do this. No, I am not willing to accept blame for something I didn't do. No, I am not willing to whatever it is in the relationship. And sometimes the relationship, whether it's a work relationship, professional relationship, or some other thing, will sometimes tank and fail. And on the other side is this amazing beauty and this amazing reward. That's the thing. So taking ownership, being willing, and being somewhat risky for reward, that's the way to go, according to all of you. That's what you've taught me. That's what I've learned. So thank you for letting me impart this to you, share this with you. Please give me your feedback. We have had people more and more patronize this offering, this content that I'm sharing with you on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/lifeinhighgear. Also, that's a great way to support us. Another great way to support this information and make sure that other people have it, because the more people who use this information and use these tools, the better. People will be more peaceful, more chill, more wealthy, and more serene. And that's great. That's a good thing. More successful. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and give us a 5-star review. More people will see this, and you can also write a review, and that's great. You can do it right there on your phone. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe. Don't hesitate. Subscribe so you'll get all the content. And I look forward to hearing from you. What did you think of this? What are some other things that you've seen successful people do? I've seen these 3 things time and time again. What are things that you're struggling with too? What are the things that I just shared with you that are a struggle for you, and why? Why do you struggle with them? I want to hear about it. So I'm here for you. I'm Kristin. It's getting to be, at the time of this recording, it's the spring of 2021. We've just been through more than a year of a pandemic, and things are changing very rapidly, day to day. And I am here for you as much as I can be. If you'd like to work with me privately, I would welcome that. And if you're listening to this and you work at a company that needs more people to take responsibility for themselves and level up, hit me up. I'm ready to help you. I've been working with some very big companies lately. It's a blessing. It's a blessing to the people who are there in the community at that company or the institution. And I'm here to help you. I'm here to help you privately. And if you just want to share some information, feel free to DM me, email me. I'm here. Thank you again for listening, watching, and sharing this with somebody who needs to hear it. And until next time, take a deep breath, exhale out, and take care.